right, Beyonders, welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. We've got a great show for you tonight that involves magic, that involves mining, that involves the two together. Lots of cave-ins, lots of rubble to clear, lots of gems. We've got lots of fun to talk about with you. We've got Anthony from Petro Gaming Group here with us this evening to talk about his game, Wizard Miners. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. Good to have you.
And of course, we have the illustrious co-host Jason joining me tonight. So
yes,
yes, Jason, we're all wearing our nice little headgear tonight.
Yes,
right. Yes, I gotta duck down a little bit too. You know, my virtual background's not making it easy, but yes. So this headgear we'll be wearing throughout the night. I think my head will be a little sweaty by the end because
it doesn't breathe very well.
I know that whenever we're at GenCon playing, right, with all those people around, I'm just like, oh man, my head's starting to get a little hot. But they're great. They're great. I've actually shoveled snow in this at one point.
I think I have too. Nice. Yeah, it warms the head. Nice and cozy up there.
Exactly. So for those of you wondering how we all had the same headgear, we got this from playing Wizard Miners at GenCon, which we will talk about as we get a little bit later into the show. But of course, before we begin, let's start with our Geek Week. Anthony, why don't you kick our Geek Week off for us?
I get to go first. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I had a pretty interesting Geek Week because it started off, if I can go back to last weekend, so it's a little 10-day Geek Week here. My wife and I went away with another couple, and we thought we'd introduce them to some simple games. They are a couple who, if you ask them, talking about gaming, you mean like Monopoly, kind of, where they're coming from.
Nice.
So you mentioned a few games that we play, and they've of course never heard of them. So I had to go to the shelf and see which ones were the best intro games I could think of for adult new gamers. So I pulled off the shelf Desperados of Dicetown, Mountain Goats, and Cash and Guns.
Ooh, Cash and Guns is going.
So it was only 4 of us playing Cash and Guns, but so not too much chaos going on. But it did prompt the first screaming between the husband and wife that we were with, which was interesting.
Nice.
So it's always good. You've hit the sweet spot when the new gaming couple start yelling at each other.
Yep.
Who they're pointing their gun at. So Cash and Guns was very successful. We toned it down a little bit when we went to Desperados of Dicetown. Nice dice rolling, simple, straightforward kind of game. Mountain Goats was a hit to finish the night off with because there's like 2 rules to it, so it was real simple to teach. My friend asked me, so on a complexity scale, how hard of games were we playing? So I introduced them to Board Game Geek, and I said, let's take a look. So Mountain Goats, I think, came up at like 1.07. It was like the lowest
Nice.
complexity rate I've ever seen. And he asked me where Wizard Miners would fall on that, and I said, I don't know. Someday we're gonna find out and see what the community thinks out there. But I'm thinking maybe a 2-4. I don't know what you guys have played. I don't know what you would think, but needless to say, he realized that he played some very simple, straightforward games. We had a lot of fun, so that was great. A few days later, in my Geek Week, we got to the longest game of Pandemic you can imagine, because we played Pandemic Legacy Season 2 throughout the pandemic. So we started off in 2020 playing outside on the deck before anybody knew what was really going on, and you just wanted to be outside. And then it just took forever to get through the game. So we are finally in December. We got crushed in our first attempt in December, but we're feeling confident. One more session and we're finally put the season to rest.
Now
that was
you
the
didn't play this with your new gaming couple,
Oh,
right?
no. I don't think they'd be my friends anymore if I did.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say like, so we introduced him to some new games. I pulled off the shelf Twilight Imperium,
Yes.
and
And I need new friends, so I'm advertising right now.
right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, I'll jump in for my Geek Week. Something kind of similar. I had an offsite, which is kind of funny because we all remote work. So our offsite at work was actually on site. So like we all met at our work for our offsite, which is kind of hilarious. And one of the things that we wanted to do is, like as team building stuff, play some board games. And so I had brought up a bunch of board games. Some of them I had picked up at GenCon actually. And we ended up not doing it because some of the folks couldn't make it there. So we ended up playing Jackbox, which is a virtual game, like party game type stuff, which is a lot of fun. Jason, have you played Jackbox before?
Yeah, we do it a lot with our family. It's everybody grabs a device and then you use we do it on the PlayStation. So we'll bring up the main app on the PlayStation and use our phones and stuff to play.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun because we were able to do it through like broadcast it through Zoom. So we had a Zoom call, and then everybody was able to use their phones, to do it. And some of the games worked better than others because like there were some that were like a facial expression one, and it was a little hard when like you weren't looking directly into the camera, and able to point or raise your hand or whatever. But it was that was surprisingly a lot of fun, and I think the beauty in that game was sort of its simplicity, right? It was like, hey, tap these buttons on your phone, which a lot of people are really, used to. So it was like a trivia game. You could tap the buttons, you could do other things. So I had a lot of fun playing Jackbox. And I think that might be something that I end up picking up. I know it's technically not like a board game, but I think my family would be more into playing something like that than setting up a huge board game,
It's a good family game for sure.
Yeah.
You can involve all ages with it.
Yeah. I will say this though. I set up and learned the rules of The Cursed and the Few. That was the board game that I picked up at that Toys for Tots booth at GenCon, right? Like I got like 4 games for $70. And in this Cursed and the Few game, it was set it up. We played a couple of rounds of it because once I had learned it, we didn't have too much time to play, but we played a couple rounds of it. And my wife at first was not too happy. She's like, this is another one of your complicated games, because it has like cards and all sorts of stuff, and she wasn't too keen on it. But once I taught her the mechanics, which were actually very simple, like in terms of like, order and phase play and stuff like that, she was like, I need to take my turn. I need to buy this thing. I need to do this job. Like she was like all into it. And she really kind of picked it up quick. And my oldest daughter picked it up quick. So it was good because it was a game at GenCon that I couldn't you didn't really play. You could kind of ask to see what it was. And they're like, okay, well, this is what it is. And this is, they gave me basically like a 30-second description of what it was. And they're like, and you get to choose between this and that if you do it, and
grab and move, grab and move,
basically. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on it because I've got these 3 games I get to choose. There's 6 games I get to choose 3, and then I get a mystery game, all for $70. Like it's a great deal. And I looked up the MSRP for all the games on Amazon, and I would have, if I bought them at cost, it would have been like $160. So I got them for $70, which I think is a great deal. And we've already played Panorama, which is a fun little kind of card scenic game. And then The Curse and the Few, and both of them have been winners in my opinion. So I feel like I did pretty good with the games there. So just having fun with post Gen Con games with the family. So that's good. That was my Geek Week. Yeah. All right, Jason, what about yours? How was your Geek Week?
All right, let me share my screen here. Which one? This one. Share. Okay. So I've been painting terrain for our Warcry tournament, right? This is what one of my final pieces looks like. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's got a nice rich tones to it. Looks dirty, grimy, which is how I like to do stuff, right? I'm really happy with my bamboo color. It's not the been dead for like 15 years bamboo, so it still has a little fresh feel to it, which I like, kind of that greenish tint. But I had to paint a lot of terrain. I mean, I was telling my kids I'm done painting terrain again for a while. I do this every time. Like when you try to complete a box right for a tournament, you get through it and you're like, I don't want to paint terrain for a long time. But so I'm like, I think I'm done. And I showed this to my wife, and she's like, I really like the bamboo. It looks really cool. And the skull thing that the tree's grown over. And I was like, yeah, I like the tree. I'm gonna leave it gray because it's kind of like this eerie dead tree. She's like, nah, it doesn't look that good. I was like, okay.
Nice.
What do I need to do? She says you need to give it a little bit more earthy, rich tone. So I don't know if you can see, but down here in this root, it's a little browner and richer. So I did that to the entire tree, but I compromised. So that kind of rich, a little bit more brown, richy tone down there, I brought all the way up with kind of a brown black oil wash. But then I faded it out when you get to the end. So it's like the arms of the tree still have that really gray look to them. And I don't have a picture of it, but I think it looks really good. And I think she was right, because the whole body or trunk of the tree now has a really like thick feel to it. And it looks painted. Whereas before she was like, it looks like you didn't paint it. I was like, okay. But now it looks a lot better. And I like that I faded. I'll get some more pictures for next time, but I like that I faded it on. So I still get that kind of like, these look like dead, like kind of skeleton hands that are trying to grasp you. So I'm happy. It'll be fun to put that on the table and watch players play on it. But that's been my week so far.
And how much did you love painting all the little lashings on that bamboo, Jason?
No. Talked about that last time, dude. It's just, it took me a whole night to paint all the lashings on that bamboo. And look, it didn't even like wow. It doesn't look good in the picture. In real life, you can see the tone difference. It's just a faraway picture camera, but every one of those has a tiny tint. You can kind of see it in the picture, but a tint to brown. When you step back and look at the whole piece, I'm happy I did.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it ever again. It's like I'm ready to move out of this style terrain.
Yeah, 100%.
But it'll be fun, and it'll sit on my shelf forever, right? So now I've got it.
That's the great thing about terrain, is that like once you have it, you have it, right? And it's just there. Like you're like, oh, let's play a quick game. Okay, you pull it out and it looks great, and you just never have to, you don't have to like worry about doing it again. So.
Yep.
Yeah. I do like your bamboo. Mine's much more orangey, like old like not old bamboo.
Yeah.
Like dead, like it's been cut, like dead cut.
Weathered,
Yours looks more a little fresher cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is cool. And then sometimes you get like the real whitish bamboo that looks like it's like really like old and faded, right? So
kind of like a bonish bamboo, which kind of, I guess, could make sense if it's out in the sun and got really bleached, but we're supposed to be in a forest, right?
Yeah. And I feel like the problem, I mean, and this is like Warhammer terrain, right? And so you have bones everywhere in Warhammer.
Yeah.
And so like, you don't want to make your bamboo look like the bones that look like everywhere else, right? So, good times. So
good times.
Yep. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing it on the table this Thursday coming up. So
this Thursday, big tournament.
Yeah. Very good.
How long does that kind of tournament last?
How many rounds are we doing this time?
5 rounds.
5 rounds. Each game is like an hour 20?
Hour 15.
Hour 15?
Yeah,
and then like
there's
a little break.
15 minutes between like the rounds. And then there'll be like a lunch break and stuff like that. So check-in is from like 8 to 9. So we'll start at 9, and then the last game is over at 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah. Or like 4:30, something like that. So 4:30 or 5.
It's going to be good. I saw some of the lists and the people. So we've definitely got a few real competitive lists out there, and we got some fun ones too. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be good. But a lot of effort goes into it, right? Like in terms of like getting it set up and making sure that you have all the terrain you need, making sure that you've got all the, I got some tickets right here for we have a raffle that we're gonna do, and got some little door prizes like little measurement tools that we'll hand them that people can have, right? So I mean, they're like little 3D printed things, but I mean, you know all about like door prizes and things to give away to make it worth people's while. And in fact, let's. I mean, I think that's our Geek Week, and we don't have Dan, so we don't have the news tonight. So let's get to our main topic.
Yeah.
Which is Wizard Miners, and I'm gonna pull up a picture here to give us some visual interest. Boom, boom. Okay, there's our Wizard Miner.
Yeah.
All right. So Anthony, why don't you? Well, let me give a little bit of context. And actually, Jason's probably better to talk about this because Jason signed up for your event at GenCon, I think several years ago, 3 years ago.
More than that.
I played it last year and this year, so Jason's a little bit newer. But maybe you can walk us through like what is Wizard Miners, like what is this game? What are we even? Why are we wearing these funny hats on our heads?
Well, that's what is Wizard Miners? I guess is a tough question because there's a million games out there. Boy, you walk through the exhibit hall at GenCon and you're like, you could never have enough years to play all the games that are out there. So we're talking about this one that Jason stumbled across. It was more than 3 years ago, right? Because we had
it was before COVID,
before COVID. So this game has been a passion project for me, a hobby. I don't know what you want to call it, for an albatross. I don't know what you want to call it since 2016. And we started off, I guess, how anybody makes their own game. They cards printed out on a printer, and you play test and you goof around with your friends, and then you think you can print it up in the game crafter just so you have real components to play with. And so when I finally said let's play it at GenCon, I don't know what I was interested in. I just wanted people to play it. So I didn't do the play test hall. I just made it a ticketed event and hope people came. And so it was actually my sister-in-law. And if you see on our website, it says if you game your family, that's because the whole family's had a piece of this that has thrown their ideas in. My sister-in-law said, you should try to find some hats and have everybody wear a wizard hat while they're playing. So I found a distributor that had these exact hats for 7 years. I've been ordering from Windy City Novelty in Chicago, the only place I can find these hats. And I get a case of hats every year before GenCon, and everybody gets a free hat to play. And so the first year we had, I ran a few events, a bunch of people played, and the coolest thing was that the whole weekend we were seeing a couple dozen people walking around with these hats throughout the convention. And that really got me juiced, and I wanted to play more, and I wanted more people to play, and so the art at the time was pathetic. It was me and Microsoft Publisher.
Not really an artist platform there.
I do not have that kind of creativity. I see you guys with the painting, and I marvel at the patience and the talent and the skill and the steady hand. I could do nothing. I can do circles and triangles, which I made a wizard hat out of on for the backs of the cards. I was so impressed when I made diamond, the gems, but the gems were just a bunch of triangles in the right space. And those were the cards I made for us to play at GenCon. But the hats were always there, and people were always loving hats. People came back and played again and got another hat. And every year it was, when can I buy this? When can I buy this? When can I buy this? And by trade, I was a school superintendent. And it was just not a lot of time to really pursue how to turn this into something that I could actually sell and make available to people. we kept playing it and kept enjoying doing that. The rules got tweaked, but I gotta say, the last few years we've tested it to death. It doesn't. It's not. The rules aren't changing anymore, and so the wall that I ended up running into was the ridiculous learning curve of manufacturing, freight shipping, fulfillment.
Ah, yes.
And I'm sure there are a lot of your listeners out there that have done it, and they're going to hear me describe it, and they're either going to feel my pain or they're going to say, "Come on, dude, it's not that hard." But I can't begin to tell you the craziness, the crazy learning curve it has been to understand the process of mass producing, not let alone crowdfunding. I mean, that's another
Mhm.
mountain to climb.
Oh, I
But
think I think most of our folks who have been through this will absolutely sympathize with you, because that's all we hear when people are running a Kickstarter. Or, in fact, we just had Robert Schwab on our podcast just last week, who is doing an RPG, right? And you're just talking about books. You're not even talking about components, right? You're talking about books, and I mean, he's like, this is probably the last Kickstarter I'll ever do, because it's just there's so much involved in it. So yeah, absolutely. You're I think you've got many the sympathetic ear out there for that
Yeah, man,
plight.
for sure.
yeah, so I mean that's my perspective of where the game came from. What the inspiration was, uh, I have no idea. I beca- I grew
Magic.
up. It was magic. I grew up. My first game, like a lot of people my age, was Dungeons and Dragons. So late '70s, early '80s, I'm playing D&D 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. Disregarding everything else, but D&D. So what has still stuck with me, even though the D&D gaming group hasn't been around for a while, what has stuck with me is that if it has a dungeon, a dragon, a wizard, an orc, an elf in it, I'll buy it and and read the rules if nothing else. Just the whole Tolkien esque. Dungeons and Dragons always appealed to me, and I always get drawn to it. So naturally, if I was going to make a game, there was going to be a wizard in it. And from a complexity standpoint, I always enjoy games that have a degree of luck so that the playing field's always even, so that there's some strategy involved to make it fun, some decisions to make to make it fun. But there's some luck involved, so that you can't you don't know who the winner is going to be when you start, like some games I play. I played when I played Dominion and my nephew is at the table. It's just a race for second place. You know those guys. You
Yeah.
flavor those guys,
Yep.
right? So it was important to me to have two things in a game. One, that there was always some luck involved, even though there was enough decisions to keep a real gamer interested. Um, but still some luck involved to level the playing field. And I also like games where everybody's involved every turn. Uh, if you can,
Simultaneous play.
yeah, simultaneous. If you can get up and go to the bathroom until it's your turn, it's to me that's not my favorite. So you got to stick around because you might get a spell thrown at you. You got to stick around because the dice are going to roll, even if it's not your turn, and you're going to dig into your mind. So yeah, fast pace. I mean, look at this wizard. The idea was we wanted to be whimsical. We wanted it to be light, a little bit of strategy, a lot of decisions, a little bit of take that, but not. I mean, you guys have noticed it's not a harsh take that.
Mhm.
It's a fun take that. Um, so it, you, the interesting story was when I asked someone to finally draw me a wizard. They asked me for my vision, and I don't know if you're going to get this reference, but considering the Mickey hat behind you, Justin, I'm hoping you will. I said I picture Stinky Pete in a wizard robe. You guys know Stinky
Nice.
Pete?
Yeah. The old prospector.
The old prospector from Toy Story.
Yeah.
So, make his beard longer and
Wow, that actually now I see it.
It really does look like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't look too much like that because I don't want to get sued. Okay,
sure. But I can't unsee it now.
It was Stinky Pete was the inspiration because of just that that fun look.
That's cool. So, you're talking about simultaneous play. You're talking about being able to cast things. Why don't you just kind of walk us through your game? I don't know if you want me to pull up your website because I think that there's some pictures on there of some of the cards.
Sure.
And let me see here. And then maybe let's see. Here we go. Yep. So here's your website, Petro. For those that are interested in visiting it is Petro Gaming Group, Petro Gaming Group.com. So here is some of the cards that you have here, but maybe walk us through like how is this game played, and so maybe the folks can understand like why simultaneous play is important, like how it works, and they can get a better sense of what this game really is about.
Absolutely. The idea is that you have a deck of cards that represents the depth of your mind, and the goal of the game is to dig to the end of your mind deck, representing that you've gotten to the center of the mountain first. So you're a mining company. You've got hammers, you've got chisels, you've got drills, but you also happen to have a wizard for a foreman. So up to 4 players, and it plays best with 4. Are simultaneously digging into this mountain using their tools. But at the same time, the wizards are throwing spells at each other to slow their opponents down and also to speed up their own digging. So the basic mechanic is that you have tools. For instance, that pick that you see in front of you, the pick has numbers on it, 12 and 15 and 15. On each turn, the player who is the active player will roll 2 8-sided dice. That's going to generate a number between 2 and 16. If one of your numbers comes out that's on one of your tools, you dig into your mind. So, which means you flip over one of your mind cards and get closer to your goal of getting through your mind deck. So if somebody rolls a 12 and I happen to have the pick, I would flip over a card. If somebody rolled a 15, I would flip over 2 cards and dig twice into my mind. And on the flip side of the mind deck is tells you value of gems that you found. So you collect gems, you take your gems, you buy more tools, you buy better tools. You upgrade your tools, you get more numbers, which means you get to dig faster, you get more gems, and so on. So you see how it goes. Very, very Settlers of Catanish in that mechanic, where you're trying for good numbers. That your good numbers come out, you get stuff, and you can go get more numbers too, so that you can keep the ball rolling.
I was going to say I think one of the key aspects of this game is. Like I look at my deck in the beginning and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this thing. You know what I mean? Because all I have is one little pick maybe in the very beginning, or you get one tool. You don't even get a tool. You basically have a number. It's your number. And once you get that, then you can start getting gems and then buy the tools and things like that, right? And so
and you do start with one tool because you start off with gems and you get an initial buying phase. So we get some numbers on the table.
And you look at that deck and you're like, whoo, this is a pretty fat deck that I need to get through, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. But it just takes a couple of successful number rolls, and all of a sudden you got another tool, and then all of a sudden you get another tool, and then all of a sudden like you're hitting on all the rolls every time, and that deck is going pretty quick, right? So it's definitely an exponential dig.
Things start to speed up, and that's where the complications come in, because when you flip a card from your mind deck, it doesn't go away; it goes into your rubble pile. And as that rubble pile grows, it has a danger of caving in. And when your cards cave in, they go back on top of your mine deck, but they go upside down, which means when you clear them off, and you have to clear them off again, so your numbers have to come out again, you don't get the gems for them. You've already taken the gems out of those cards. So when you have a cave in, those cards are just in your way. And the cave-in is the best mechanism for slowing down the person who's getting lucky rolls. So another good thing about the game is that you really are never out of it. And oftentimes getting out to an early lead is bad because everybody knows it. They're watching you flip cards. They're seeing you collect gems, which means the attack spells are coming at you. So
yeah, you get the aggro
on you. Yes. And then the person in last place seems, start flying under the radar, and all of a sudden they start flipping cards over, and they start to come out of nowhere. So it is a game that can turn quickly and have a lot of changes to it. The cave-in can really balance things out. The spells are a great aspect of it because it keeps everybody playing. Even if you're behind, you can still start throwing spells at other players and do some fun stuff.
Now, when you were creating the kind of the tool bank there, because there's the hammer, the big hammer, the great hammer, did you have to do some math on probabilistic curves to kind of figure out what numbers should be on which stage of the tool and all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. I figure someday, I'll be able to sell that spreadsheet, because it'll be so famous. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I look back and I find that file from 2015 in an Excel spreadsheet of calculating out. So, because what I didn't want was there to be a path that everybody wants to take. Well, I got to get the pick and the hammer because they got the best numbers for the price. So I really spent a lot of math time trying to make it so that the choice of tool was not the smarter person was going to always get the better tools, or the more experienced person was going to get make the better picks of the tools. Pardon the pun, the better picks. So if you look at the way the cards are, the big hammer, when you upgrade your hammer to the big hammer, you place that card on top, but you don't cover up the 10, 10, and the 16. You add to it. So as you improve your tool, it becomes it becomes enhanced rather than just replaced.
Yeah, and one of the things that a player asked me when we were playing once is, do the colors matter on the numbers of the cards? What are they trying to tell me? And so what was your intention there?
My intention there, and it never really seemed to be something anybody needed. My intention there was, if you have 3 tools all upgraded to the great tool, you're going to have 9 tool cards out, and you got to look at a lot of numbers. So the intention was, I'm going to make all the low numbers one color, the middle numbers are green, the high numbers are red, the low numbers are blue. So an attempt to, when you scan your numbers, it's easier to pick them out. I don't know if it ever really helps anyone, but that was the intent. Now they just look nice. They're a tradition.
Yeah. That's interesting. I always thought you were doing that to try to highlight the numbers that had more chances for popping up on the curve on the 2 dice that you roll. But I don't know.
It's not a bad idea, but that's not it.
That's not it. Okay.
There's no correlation. You can see
correlation.
You see the 3 is blue and the 16 is red, so they're both unlikely to come out in their different colors.
Yeah, so. Cool. Yeah, really, really a lot of fun. I remember the first time I played, I think when I sat down, I think it was, you had said you'd been working on it for a little over a year. This is a while ago, right? So it would have been like 2017 GenCon maybe, or something like that. Yeah. And I remember seeing the hats, and but I remember just reading it because everyone else had a game that they were doing, and I had a free spot in my in my schedule, and I usually leave a lot of free time to go to the convention hall. And I think I was just getting convention hall burned out, so I just kind of scrolled through and I was like, "Oh, Wizard Miners, that sounds cool." And so I signed up for it, and I came in, sat down, and when I was going to sit down, I saw the hat in the seat, and I was like, "Done, sold." Right. And so I put the hat on, and yeah, I kept the hat on all day. But I remember playing, and it was like you said, it was like you had printed these cards off of your printer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so much fun that I went back and I couldn't stop talking about it with all of our buddies in gaming groups. And then the next year, one of my buddies, Sean Watson, who actually bought one of your prototype boxes from you, came with me the next year, and we came and we played it, and he was like, "That was rad. You know, I love that game. It was awesome." And I know he's kept in touch with you a lot over the years, and I think not this past Gen Con, but the one before,
Mm-hmm.
he came and you guys did a game trade or something.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was cool. And I'll tell you, for that year, in between that last Gen Con and that one, we played Wizard Miners at his house with his family multiple times. So with his kids and everything. So you got a good game that is extremely family friendly, but like you said, still has decisions so that a hardcore gamer still feels like they're playing a game that's fun, right? That they can make some choices. And the simultaneous play is the other part that's really good about this game. You know, I hate games where you wait 45 minutes and you do nothing, right, until it's your turn. This game, you're hoping for that dice every time. It's almost like you're playing craps together at a table, right? You're hoping for that one roll that the guy's going to give you when he goes on there. So cool game. So let me ask you a question. You said you have no idea where the concept came from. It's just kind of evolved. But what about the rules, right? So like concepts like cleanup, like you said, when you mine, rubble happens, and if a cave-in happens, that rubble goes back on top. So there's a mechanic in the game wherein on your turn, instead of maybe buying or instead of digging, you can do like a cleanup or a double cleanup to get rid of some of that rubble to protect yourself from a cave-in. So like, how did you get to those little mechanics to try to help the game?
Yeah, when I think back of the original concept, there was in my mind the mountain was going to physically exist on the table. It was going to be a board made up of almost like picture dominoes, and you would flip dominoes on your way to the center of the mountain to see who could get there first. So I was kind of thinking along those lines, and it just wasn't. It wasn't working. It wasn't. It couldn't. It didn't flow. So the deck of cards became the depth of the mine, and from there, really, the third thing I'd like to add to that list of some strategy but some luck plus simultaneous play. I'd like to add a third one. I really like things that have a strong theme. So there were rules considered and ideas that didn't fit the idea of digging into a mountain that had to be that couldn't be used. The cave in and we didn't talk about the cave in card, but for 99.999% of the people out there that have no idea what Wizard Miners is, the deck is 42 cards thick, and in the middle of it, right after card 21, is a cave in card, and that's when your mind really has the danger of caving in. But that's thematic. You've dug halfway into a mountain now, and there's a good, it's going to start to get unstable. So that made sense, and the fact that rubble falls back into your mine, and you got to clean it out. Well, there's no gems in there. You already cleaned out those rocks, so that made sense. So those kinds of thematic things that make it really feel like, yeah, I am a wizard and I am really digging here, I think add to the flavor of the game. So I guess the rules evolved to be a great example is like Justin had said, you start off with just your wizard number, and you don't have a tool yet. That used to be the way we played when you first played, Jason. that was the case. And
Yeah.
and we rolled around the table until those numbers came out, and it got the game off to a slow start. So the idea was, how do we get numbers into the game right away? So, okay, everybody started with some gems, and we have an initial buying phase. So before the dice are ever rolled once, not only do you have your starting number, but everybody also has a tool. So now numbers are there right out of the gate. So people are hitting their numbers in the first few rolls. So everybody's getting to play right away. So I get, through the process of play testing, you really kind of, things started to evolve. That just said, "Ooh, let's try this. Ooh, let's try that." A lot of the different spells came along that way.
Yeah, I could see that with spells because, like you said, there's a little. It's kind of like Take That Light, right? There's a little bit of attack your other wizards, but it's not. It's never. You never feel like horrible when you get one of those on you. Like in some games, you can just feel like demoralized, like you just destroyed my entire turn. Whereas here, it's just maybe a couple pieces of rubble, or you broke a tool for a round or two, or that kind of thing. Although I think we did, Justin, on your table, if I remember right, right out the door, one of the players had the spell and he broke the starting tool after he had spent his money on it. Right?
Yep. Right out of the gate. Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Never saw that.
And
Never saw it.
His really good friend, his best friend of so many years, I don't know if they're best friends, but the really, really close friend, right out of the gate, first turn said, "Yeah, I'm going to break your tool, buddy." Straight, first spell cast of the game. So, and he's like, "This is my only tool." So, I think he didn't end up winning. He came in second place though. So, what Anthony said earlier about like you're never really out of it. Like was very true to it. But it was kind of hilarious. We all laughed at him and said, "Yeah, that sucks." But,
yeah,
it's amazing that after 7 years that I had never seen that happen. That was the first.
Yeah, it happens. I think another concept that you have done in this game that you touched on just a minute ago is the cave-in, right? And this is a mechanic that I think I haven't seen a lot in other games. I know there are probably games out there that parallel this, but the cave-in is cool because, like you said, there's a 42 card deck, right? And the cave-in is, how deep is it?
21 in.
21 in. So if somebody starts ramping up and they start speeding through their deck before others, they're going to hit that cave-in. And it's almost a natural way of slowing someone down when they get near the end to allow the other people to kind of catch up. And it's not guaranteed, right? Because you have to roll, like it has to, a certain roll has to pop. So there's that luck element, but there's an additional chance that will slow down that person that's speeding up. And they still, at that point, maybe they can take a moment to upgrade some more tools or something like that to help them through that. But I've always thought that the cave-in was an exciting part of the game because you're also like, you can see the Magic gathering players, the other card game players are like counting their cards. All right, how close am I to that cave-in, as they get going. But
yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
It's also it puts a spotlight on the person who's leading because everybody has it in the same place in their deck. So the first person to get to it is the one leading. There's no doubt about it. There's no denying it.
They start getting to take that spells.
They're starting to get to take that spells, absolutely. And then once your cave-in card is out, from playing that your mind is now you're deep enough into your mind that you could cave in on any roll of the dice. So as the dice go around, we add that cave-in die, and now you run the risk of your mind caving in, which slows you down because you want to slow down and clean up. As you mentioned earlier, you could get the rubble out of the way, but you got to use up your turn to do that. You can't buy new tools or anything. The cave-in really ends up being a great equalizer, at least to allow people to catch up and get into it.
I know how I played it, and it probably wasn't the best. I was unfortunate in the beginning. I didn't get a lot of hits on my numbers, and so the first two players ended up building kind of a substantial lead. But that's just the roll of the dice. But with it though, because I knew it was at card 21. I wasn't doing any cleanup in the initial part, right? Like my goal was to just keep buying tools because I needed to mine faster. So, like when I was at card 15, I was like, nope, not doing cleanup. And people were like, you're crazy, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, we'll see, you know. And then I got to 20 and I'm like, okay, it's time to clean up now, you know. And so ended up cleaning up there. But I'm curious, like, did the cave-in card always start at 21, or is that a rule that had evolved as well? Like, did you initially just shuffle it in like anywhere randomly in the deck, or
Yeah,
you know, that because I could see the case for it to be somewhere random in the cave versus somewhere fixed, like, you know, card 21.
and yeah, it's interesting you asked that because originally there was going to we were going to split the deck into instead of 2 21s and dropping it in the middle, we're going to split it into 3 14s. The
Mm.
first 14 we know it wasn't in, and the last 14 we know it wasn't in. It was going to be random in that middle 14. So, you know, again, I everything's an inspiration from another game. I'm picturing shuffling the pandemic cards in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you count out a certain number, you put one in there, and then you shuffle up that small deck. And we play tested like that for a little while. There was something about the certainty of why, you know, again, thematically, why would mine be caving in earlier than yours? You know, maybe 10 cards different. There was something really nice about, hey, that person's halfway through, and we're not, so they're in the lead. It just seemed to play better. You got the plan for your cave-in card, which again, thematically, you would know. I'm getting pretty deep into this mine. It's time to start planning for this something bad to happen. I better slow down and clean up. So it kind of through play testing, it kind of seemed like that was it felt right. It just felt more right.
You know, you have hit on several times the last few minutes the thematic nature of the game, right? Obviously, the artwork in there is pulling it, the tools, all those things. The mechanics have been a big part of you maintaining your theme, and that's interesting because we've talked with a few other game designers who have had their games bought by big publishers, and a lot of times, the story we hear is that the game gets reskinned, like the publisher bought it for the mechanics, right? And they reskin the game around those mechanics. And that's one of the beauties that of self-publishing. Even though the difficulties, as you expressed earlier, the benefits of self-publishing is you can maintain that theme around your game that you built, right? You can keep it exactly kind of how you want to do. So, are you you know, on your website, if you go there, it says get on the list to find out when it's coming. So, any thoughts there on how that ball's rolling?
Absolutely. I'm really starting to crack the code of how to get it done. I'm settled in on most likely, I'm 90% sure of my manufacturer. I'm 90% sure of my fulfillment company. I think I know how to get it from the manufacturing in China to the to the United States and around. Um, uh, there's a lot of good blogs out there. Jamie Stonemeyer's got a tremendous blog on Stonemeyer Games. A lot of help out there for first time publishers. A lot of good places to go and get advice, and talking to people at conventions. So yes, I feel that I was hoping to target quarter 4 of 2023, but it's most likely going to be quarter 1 of 2024. But I really feel that a good social media push in the next few months and a crowdfunding in early 2024 could have us playing it in at GenCon. Well, we're definitely playing it at GenCon. It's only a question of is there one copy or 1,000 copies available?
Right.
Hey, I had a great story about one copy because you guys have one of 2 copies that actually exist out in the world. Um, the second copy it was last Gen Con, not 2023, but 2022. A family came to play, a mom, dad, daughter, and son. The daughter and son were dressed up as Power Rangers, and the daughter was probably 11, I would guess, and the son was 6 or 7. So he needed a lot of help with the game. But the girl was a natural gamer. She picked up the rules incredible. I mean, this girl is, she might not even been 11. She was within 3 or 4 turns, she was turning over the turn marker and saying, "I'm not digging," and she flipped over the turn marker, and her father reached over and turned it back over, and he said, "No, you got to keep it on this side." And she said, "No, no, no, I'm not digging because I'm going to clean up twice." And I'm just like, okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So
Strategizing.
it was Thursday of GenCon. They were staying for the 4 days. And when GenCon was over, the mother had reached out to me via email and said, "Where can I buy this?" She didn't stop talking. We played all weekend, and she never stopped talking about Wizard
Wow.
Miners. So I'm pulling on my heartstrings, right? So I'm saying, "I'm sorry, it really doesn't exist yet. The only games I got are the ones I bring to GenCon." And she said, "Is there any way? Is there any way? I wanted to give it to her for Christmas. It would be such a surprise." So I said, "Listen, I'll be honest with you. I get them made at Game Crafter. I've got an extra box and an extra set of rules lying around here somewhere. I'll order the cards from Game Crafter. If you just want to pay me for whatever it costs me for the cards, I'll box it all up. I got a million gems from Amazon. I got all those components, dice laying around." I said, "I'll just charge you for the cards. I'll throw it all in a box and I'll get it to you." She said, "Oh my God, that would be fantastic. Please do that." So um, I order it from Game Crafter. It comes in. I package it all up, and I reach out to Mom and I say, "Send me your mailing address. It'll be in the mail today." And she she emails me back. She says, "This is a Christmas miracle." So,
Wow.
needless to say, I felt like, all right, I was Santa Claus, a game designer, and Santa Claus all rolled up into one.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
I'd award my wizard hat to the UPS store.
That's
You
right.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Now,
awesome.
one of the, I'm sure that as you're going through this, all the production logistics and everything like that, you've got to make some tough decisions about like what kind of cards do we need? What kind of components are going to be in there? Are there going to be cardboard components or actual plastic or metal components? Or, like what are you talked about how you got a whole bunch of gems off of Amazon, but you can't do that for, a mass production type of thing. And so, what do you think the final product is going to look like in terms of cards and components and things like that? And I know that you're probably not 100% there, but just kind of gauging where you're at right now.
No, that's a great question because you concentrate so much on the gameplay, but we're all gamers. We know what we look at when we see a game. We like cool components, right? Otherwise, you guys wouldn't spend hours a day with the painting that you do.
Right.
Right? Cool components just make a game more fun to just look at and to hold. So some of the things that I want to do is I want to have something other than the cardboard chit, the big square chit for the turn marker. I was thinking maybe a metal coin would be cool. Um, Something a little more substantial for that turn marker. Maybe something that you can put the dice in and move it to the next player. As turn marker and dice move along. Player mats seem like this game screams out for player mats. I mean, you look at you guys have played a couple of times, so you might not notice it as much, but the table's a mess once the game is most of the way in. There's cards everywhere, right? Player mats, I think, are definitely something I want to include. And I don't know if there's going to be add-ons or stretch goals or basic game and deluxe game. But the dynamite, you saw the dynamite this year. We didn't mention dynamite to your listeners, but that's a way to make cave-ins more deadly. So you sneak dynamite into your opponent's caves, and when they have a potential for caving in, there could be a disastrous cave in because there's dynamite waiting there. But the dynamite used to be cardboard chits, but now they're wooden dynamite looking dowels, uh,
Hmm.
meeples, dynamite meeples, maybe you want to call them.
Right.
The cards, I think, are the cards. They're going to be good quality cards, but that's the art. That's the size of them. The, that's the bulk of the game is card driven. The dice, obviously, the cave-in die is going to be a custom die, so it's not just a decal slapped on a single side. So those kinds of upgrades are definitely in the works. Uh, there is one, and I'll throw this out there to see what your reaction is. Um, I was thinking about a foldable. Oh my goodness! I have my ridiculously poorly created paper one, but I was thinking about. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I was thinking about a foldable treasure chest
To put the gems in.
to put your gems in, so that they're not, you don't just have a pile in front of you.
Oh,
Ah,
interesting.
All right, now this is pretty sad because it's just printed out on my paper printer, but you get the idea. If this were more substantial, that everybody would have their little treasure chest in front of them, and when they collect gems, they just drop them in
Hmm.
there. So
Interesting. Yeah.
keep neating them up a little bit. So it's those kinds of things that I think have some. I'm sure there's a gamer term for it, but I haven't published a game yet, so I don't know it. But curb appeal, if you were a real estate agent,
sure, sure.
a box appeal or component
Mhm.
appeal.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to put a lot of thought into it. And the crazy thing is that I immediately, the advice that I get um, comes from places that I never would have thought to ask. So I'm glad they said it. But my fulfillment guy says to me, "Well, metal coin, be careful. We got to keep weighing the game, because if you go over this weight, you're caught. You're
Mm.
showing." And then player mats. Well, you got to make sure you design them to fit in the box, and the box has to stay these
Yep.
dimensions. Don't go over these dimensions, because you're going to
Yeah.
double your shipping costs, because it's not a standard box anymore.
Yeah.
So my head's exploding with okay, I got it. Seems like everything works backwards from the box size.
That's
you know,
interesting.
and that, so that
Hmm.
was something I didn't even think about. I was designing the player mat so that the cards fit nicely on it, but
Hmm.
in truth, I've got to make sure the player mat fits in the box, and then design it in such a way so that it accommodates the cards instead of the other way around.
So it's funny you say that because, on our last day of GenCon, we played a game called Planetfall. It had just come out, and it was a really fun game. And they were selling mats with it, right? They had like a player mat so you could get, and also a big mat, right, that you could play off of. And I was talking about it with my friends that were there, and I said, like, do you think that those mats are worth it? And I said, I don't think so. I think the game played just fine without it, just because of like where you ended up putting your cards and compared to your cardboard console that you had, and stuff like that. And they said, the biggest determining factor on whether or not I end up getting mats is, can it fit in the box, like when it's done, because a lot of times you'll get these big old mats and you can't put it in the box, and so you just have your game and then a mat sitting out there too, and it ends up cluttering up shelves, and your games don't fit as nicely, and sometimes you're like, where did that other mat go, where did I put it, that type of thing. And so especially like the little neoprene ones, right? Like you think, oh, these are really great. Like they lay out so nicely. They never get creased. They never get bent. They never, all this stuff. But then it's like, well, where are you going to put it? Because it doesn't fit inside the game box that's this big. Do you know what I mean? Because the mat is this big now, and so all these things to think about that I don't envy you on them, but it's also kind of a passion project too, right? So like you get to try to solve problems for something that you love, which makes it a little bit easier to try to work through.
It does, and some of the stuff is really interesting to learn. Some of it hurts my head, but some of it is really, it's interesting to learn the whole process. So It's been a journey. I'm excited about the idea that if I can just get over the hump with Wizard Miners and learn everything, how much fun will it be to make the second game?
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I hear that a lot from game designers, which was the first game is absolutely the hardest. And just for all the things that you have talked about, right? Like the play testing, kind of like, the problem I think a lot of first time game designers have is they say, like, I've got this idea for the game in my brain, and it may not be the best game, and they're maybe attached to some of the rules or mechanics that they really want in there, but that people are saying like, that didn't really work for me. Like using the concept of like putting that card in the middle of 14, right? Like maybe like, if sometimes as game designers, you get so attached to that you're like, no, it has to be in there, without realizing that, like, adjusting things can make it a little bit, make it a better game and not totally compromise your vision of what this game should be. Right. And so they work through those types of things. They work through all the publishing type stuff, and then they get done. They're like, oh, okay, I can do this. Right. And that confidence definitely helps them on the next one and moving forward. So, yeah, very good. I love, Anthony, how family friendly this game is. I know I didn't play it with my kids. I played it with my friends, but I mean, I could absolutely sit down and play this game, and in one round, I mean, one turn, not even just a round, right? Like one turn, everybody knows what's going on. Like it's really not. I think giving it a 2.4 is probably overcomplicating this game, actually. And this game is great in its simplicity, right? And that's what that is what makes it, in my opinion, a great game, because it is simple, it is fun, it offers the strategy to make choices, but it's not so complicated that it would turn people off of it that don't want to play a complicated game, right? And so that's what I think appeals to so many people that have really enjoyed this game, that love it already, right? From having played it at GenCon. So
Yeah.
I would give it a below, maybe like a round or two for complexity, but a 7.89, 8.5 for enjoyment, right? Like high up there for that.
I'll take that.
Like that,
Yeah.
So
That's from and you guys like some serious games too, so that's cool.
yeah, absolutely. It's funny because we had Allie, she's on Instagram as the gamer girl, and she's been on our shows a couple of times talking about board games, and she runs the gamut. She'll play some really complicated ones and then some really easy ones, and it's funny to hear her talk about it. She's like, it's a game, I'll play it. And some of her favorite games are the super simple ones because they're simple, easy mechanics that allow the gameplay to happen.
Yep.
Right. You get into a game like, and don't get me wrong, I love games like this, but you play a game like Axis and Allies with your friends. That's not a simultaneous play game. That's a game where you can go get pizza and come back and it's still not your turn, and, but I still love it, but that's not for everybody. And for my family, like Axis and Allies is not for them. Right, like a game like Wizard Miners is totally for them because everybody's engaged.
Yep.
Everybody gets to have fun. You can play this game. We sat down for the 2-hour block, and I think we ended up playing it in about an hour-ish. It's probably about where we ended up.
It runs pretty regular 75 minutes, and that's with teaching the rules. So my games usually at GenCon run between an hour 15, hour and a half, but that's with first time play. So second time play out, you guys are running an hour, maybe an hour 10.
Yeah. So and that's like for a busy family with kids all over the place and youth that don't have the attention span that they used to. Like that is a great game for them. So I know I'm excited to get it on the table. We're excited for you to put it out on Kickstarter. You said that hopefully by the end of the year you might have it out.
I think that by the end of the year, if I'm shooting for a crowdfunding, a Kickstarter date, it's most likely going to be first quarter of 2024.
Okay.
Maybe mid to late January. That gives me a few more months to ramp up, getting a following that knows it's out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
and so we can hit the ground running. It does, yeah. I'm sure everybody, single game publisher is not thinking about someday having their own warehouse or being Asmodee Games or something. I just want people to play the game. I get so much enjoyment at Gen Con watching people have fun playing the game, that the thought of a few hundred people backing it on Kickstarter and it being on their table a few months later, just that's the coolest thing.
And launching a Kickstarter in December is a terrible idea.
Sounds like it. Yes.
Yeah. The problem is everybody's spending money on actual games that they can put under the tree, and not not a Kickstarter that'll be fulfilled in 8 months to a year. So, but if you do it in January, oh sorry, Jason, but if you do it in January, maybe you could have it to them in December as a Christmas present, right? Like
absolutely,
that'd be some great timing.
Yep. I think first quarter. Yeah. Trying to hit last quarter is going to be tough because it's got to be under the tree. It's got to be in my hands. But first quarter of the next year, then I'm rebaselining. The holidays are behind you, and you're ready to kind of get back into the swing of seeing what you can fund and move forward with.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That's and it also buys me another month or 6 weeks to prep.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Right. That's right. Well, Anthony, we loved having you on the show. We are obviously big fans, as you can tell by the hats, of Wizard Miners. I'm sure next year at Gen Con, we're going to try to find some time to sit down and play it some more. But we hope to see before next Gen Con, obviously, this come out on Kickstarter, because that means all things are going well for you. Things are coming up roses. And, we wish you the best as you do this, and please let us know so that we can put it out to our Beyonders out there that this is coming out, and that they should all get it for them and their families as well. So we thank you so much for coming on our show.
I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate the attention you've given to a wannabe indie publisher, and I really enjoy the podcast. I know anybody who's listening already enjoys the podcast, but you guys have just a wide variety of guests in there. I love hearing about things that I don't necessarily get exposed to, like Pirate Board was a very interesting listen, and Gamer Girl was just a couple episodes ago, like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah.
So it's very enjoyable to be exposed to so many other types of games. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks.
Well, we appreciate you saying those kind words to us. And sometimes we say these things and it feels like our episodes just go out into the ether. And it's great to know that people are listening and that they are finding these topics as interesting as we do, right? So to our listeners out there, please go visit Anthony's website, petrogaminggroup.com. The main reason you want to do that is on their site, there is a way to get onto their mailing list to let you know when the Kickstarter goes live. So petrogaminggroup.com, scroll down, you'll see Wizard Miners is coming. Click the button to get on the mailing list, and that way you can do that. We will put a link in the description of this podcast episode and YouTube video, so that you can just click it there if you need to get to the website. But we wish everybody the best. Anthony, we wish you the best, and we'll see everybody at the tables. So have a great night, everyone.
See ya.
Thanks, guys. See you, everybody.